Pet's Life with Gym Dog, Ireland's first pet resort by Des the Vet. Managed by vets, loved by pets. Daycare, vet care, premium pet food and grooming. Visit at petslife.ie.
You know what, Des? It wouldn't. We couldn't let it go. But that was some performance from the boys in green, because I know you're a big rugby nut as well.
Yeah, I was delighted for them, and I wasn't overly optimistic coming into the game, but they really stepped up. Young Osborne from Naas. I know his dad Joe very well, so I'd say Joe would have been delighted.
Absolutely.
And his uncle Robbie.
Yeah.
But he's a fine, big, strong young man now. He's stepped up into the jersey really well.
Yeah, I was watching on YouTube last night. Actually, I was watching the match from the South Africans' media's perspective and their equivalent of, say, Against the Head. Yeah. And they just turned around and Berger was being interviewed, and he just said, Schalk Burger, and he just said, he heard in the grapevine from the Irish guys after the party, after the few beers afterwards, that they only trained once on the Wednesday, and that was it. And then Farrell just said, the rest is just chill out, relax, and do the mental stuff, which I thought was really interesting. But anyway,
interesting to hear that.
Yeah,
they needed a break.
Absolutely, they're on the break now, and we're up and running with our Vet's slot, which is it's a Vet's Life with Des, and it's been in the news. Actually, a couple of things been in the news. First of all, about the elephants, which we'll get to a little bit later on. Yeah. But finally, XL bully dogs to be banned in the state following recent attacks. So, I mean, look, it was always going to happen or something. And there's all sorts of controversy about this as well.
There's controversy about it because all of the vocal dog advocates are against it. Yeah. But I have to say, bluntly, the dog advocates are not the best people to advocate for public health.
Right, okay.
Their job is to advocate for dogs.
Yeah.
And people who understand risk... Yeah. And understand statistics and understand law and order and how to manage risk are the best people to legislate for this. Yeah. And yes, it's not a perfect law, but no law is perfect. Laws just have to be practical and implementable and manageable. Okay. There's never a perfect law.
What does this actually mean now? So let's just take the dog itself. So the XL bully is now going to be from October, I think it's going to be banned.
Now, you see, they're not a specific breed. They're a crossbreed or they're a type of dog. Okay. But the type of dog that they are is defined very clearly in the legislation as it is in the UK.
Okay, so what is the cross made of?
American Pit Bull and Staffordshire Bull Terrier. Okay. They'd be the main two. And occasionally you see them where there's a bit of Mastiff put in there to make them even bigger.
Okay, right, fair enough. Okay, so that's where we're at regarding the dog. Now, they're saying that they're going to be banned. What does that mean in English?
The ban in practical terms means that nobody's going to have to put their dog down for no good reason. So it's not about euthanizing healthy dogs. No, there's two stages to it. So in October, the ban will be on the breeding and the sale of them, the rehoming of them, and the importation of them.
Okay, so the rehoming bit is the one that's going to bug people, isn't it?
It will, because there's a certain amount of them in the shelters.
Yes.
And the shelters would like to try and find homes for them. Okay. But occasionally, there needs to be a little bit of practical realisation, big picture thinking, that a lot of these dogs are possibly not rehomable and they have found their way into the shelter for a reason. And they have a history. Yes. Which oftentimes we don't know. Right. So some of these dogs are just not safe to be rehomed.
Okay, so they'll be euthanized.
They might have to be.
Yeah. In real terms, they probably will be, will they?
And just being blunt and practical about it, there are some that probably will have to be euthanized. Yeah. But you see, purely on a public safety level, there probably are dogs that find their way into shelters without much of a history, without much of a past. We don't know what's happened to them. Right. Then they are rehomed, and even with all the checks and all the risk assessment, you can never be fully sure what's going on in a dog's head, and you can never be fully sure what a dog is going to do.
Okay, so the first thing they're going to do is rehome the dogs that are in the kennels to the best of their abilities.
The best of their abilities.
Okay. Yeah. Because of the way the law is now changing, the rehoming part might be more difficult than we think, will it? Because people mightn't take the chances of saying, I'm not going to go with one.
People might take a chance on taking one in. That's the problem. But there are options there that you could rehome one if it's microchipped, if it's neutered, and if you have a licence for it. So the ones that have passed the temperament checks, the ones that are safe, they can be safely rehomed if they're neutered, microchipped and licensed.
Okay. I suppose, like, when you look at the big picture, what's the end game in this?
The end game is just to reduce the population of them, reduce the number of them to a minor level. Right. It's not about exterminating them as a breed. It's about managing risk so that there are fewer of them out there.
How many of them is in the country?
We don't know.
Okay.
Numbers are unknown.
Because it's underground underground, really.
Yeah, because there's an underground element to it, and there has been very little policing about it. There are to be 40 new dog wardens brought on stream, and that was legislated last year, and it still hasn't happened.
Yeah.
The extra 40 dog wardens countrywide, that has to happen.
I saw something, one dog warden to tens of thousands or something, like something stupid.
I think there's 2 in County Kildare.
Right.
And Kildare would be a big populous county.
There are plenty of dogs.
There's a few in Dublin. There should be 1 in every good district in Dublin.
Right.
And there probably needs to be 3 in Kildare and 2 in every other county.
What will the duties be of a dog warden?
Duties of a dog will be answering calls
Yeah.
of a stray dog, a loose dog, a social disorder, public disorder, whether it's barking or a dog that's... Oftentimes you get these cases of sort of benign neglect where people need to be reminded that they can't leave the dog at home in the garden during the day.
Yeah.
Maybe the neighbours report a dog for barking all day in the garden, lack of socialisation, lack of company. Oftentimes that happens because people will go off to work and there'll be an assumption that the dog is fine, and they might need to be told or shown that the dog isn't fine in the garden by himself.
Joan was on there. Great idea about adding 40 wardens. She said it's about time, because in this day and age we need more people to be able to police the dogs as well.
Yeah, that's it. Now look, that's already legislated for. I don't quite know why it hasn't happened.
Right.
It's in the remit of the Minister for Agriculture.
Budget,
I would say it's budgetary, and there's a crossover issue there between jurisdictions. The Department of Ag might say one thing, but they're relying on the Department of Environment or county councils to implement it.
Okay, so let's go back to the XLs then. So
Yeah.
in the meantime, right,
October, John.
October it all kicks in,
Kicks
right,
in.
the first phase of it.
Yes.
So that means there's going to be a ban on the importing the dogs and the ban of breeding them. Is there anything else?
You can't sell them.
Yeah.
They won't be advertisable on any of the dog sale channels.
Right.
And the rehoming, which is, unfortunately, that's the part of it people aren't going to like.
The people who have their existing dogs,
Yes.
What happens to them?
They have until February of next year to get that dog neutered, microchipped and licensed.
Okay. So that means they don't have to get it put down or anything like that.
No.
And that's what all the stuff that was going out on social media.
yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm going to have to get my dog put down.
If you're a responsible dog owner
Yeah.
with a well-trained, well-managed, well-socialised, safe dog, and you're the type of person who understands the legislation and understands that you have to have this dog muzzled in public, has to be in the care of an adult, has to be kept on a lead, and so on. All that's required of you is to neuter your dog, not to breed from it, have it microchipped and have it licensed.
From your own experience dealing with these dogs, what are they like temperamentally?
The issue with them is, and some dog trainers have said this, they don't give off the same signals in many cases because they don't have the same levels of socialisation and integration as a typical family pet. So they're a mix of working breeds.
Right, okay.
And so they don't have this type of domestication, socialisation in them genetically that, say, a pet Labrador would have.
Yeah.
So they don't give you the same signal as a typical house pet dog would. You can approach one, you can give the dog the body language and the signal that you're going to put a lead on him, you're going to put a muzzle on him, and oftentimes they don't give you any feedback until they react. So this is the problem with them, is that they can be reactive without warning.
Do you think this is just the beginning with XLs? Is there going to be other breeds that are going to go into the same category as in what they're going to put them in under law, as in a new law, like?
Yeah, I do. Okay, so we have the 11 others that are restricted breeds.
Yeah, that's the word I was thinking of.
Now,
yeah.
if too many, if one of the arguments against the idea of breed designation is the fact that people will just breed a different type and give it a different name.
Yeah.
Now, this time, I think there's no appetite for tolerating that type of going around the houses.
Yeah.
So those type of loopholes won't be tolerated, because within this legislation, the breed type that's not permitted is very clearly defined. It's a dog 51 centimetres tall, a dog with a head shape of a 2-to-1 ratio between the back of the head and the muzzle, and the description of the musculature, the straightness of the front leg, the straightness of the hind leg, and so on. So what we call the phenotype, which is the makeup of the dog, that's clearly defined.
Right, okay.
So you can put another name on your dog, and an inspector will be entitled to say, no, sorry, that's an XL bully type.
Right, is an inspector different to the warden now? The warden is just going to manage the day-to-day stuff. Who's going to decide whether, say, somebody makes a report to somebody about, I know there's an XL dog It hasn't been neutered. It hasn't been done this. It's under, I'm going to rat somebody else.
Yeah.
So do they contact the warden, or do they contact the department, or who do they go to?
They'll contact the dog warden initially. The dog warden will have jurisdiction similar to a guard within his own remit. So a little bit like a customs inspector. He will have legal powers to exercise his own job.
Okay, well, that makes sense as well. If you can't breed then or rehome them, how is it that they're wiping out the breed at all? They're not really, though.
Well, you can't breed them.
Yeah, I can't breed them.
You can't breed them, so that'll prevent a dog that you have from multiplying.
Yeah.
But the dog that you have can happily live out the rest of his days.
Yeah, and younger dogs, there's nothing stopping that. Okay, what about some of the younger female dogs of the XL bullies that are floating around?
They'll have to be spayed.
They'll have to be spayed, because that hasn't been brought up much at all. It's all about the males, really.
Yeah, the focus is on the males, because there's an assumption that the male ones are the more aggressive. That's not always the case.
No.
You can't say that necessarily a male is more aggressive than a female.
Yeah, the reason why I was asking
in these.
Yeah, and the reason why I was asking that was that if it's a female XL, there's nothing stopping somebody, if they weren't spayed, just breeding with another type of dog.
So you see, if there's a ban on breeding, and that's implemented from October.
Right, regardless of what other breed.
You'll have to have your female spayed by February.
Right, and male.
And your male
all
castrated.
XLs have to be.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's the key thing to it.
That's the key thing.
But as you said yourself, if there's people out there that are dog owners and they're responsible and they have their XLs and it's a family pet and there's no issues, go off and get it done, and Bob's your uncle.
I've met a few good ones.
Yeah.
That are perfect. They've been in and out to us in Gym Dog for their doggy daycare, and there are some of them that are fine. They're perfect, and they're in the hands of really good, responsible owners who put the training in, and they're neutered.
Okay, Gillian was on. She says, for 10 years in our house we had a Rottweiler, absolutely adorable pet, never an issue, loves the children love him. Unfortunately he passed away a couple of years ago back, but he was a classic example of I can see where she's coming from, but it's a classic example of being a household pet.
Yeah, they are. Some of those restricted breeds are very, very good in their behaviour towards people, and the restriction is applied because their aggression is often directed more towards other dogs than people.
But I remember there was a Disney movie years ago about Dobermans, right? And they made them out to the biggest, sloppiest yokes ever. And they were one of those breeds as well that had a bad reputation.
Yeah, they had a bad reputation. Well, you see, their origin is that they were originally a guard dog, a working guard dog. So the guard dog genetics are still strong in them. It's very easy to train them to be a proper guard dog, to be aggressive again. But because they're so intelligent, if they're well harnessed, well trained, well managed, they can become lovely pets too.
Yeah.
The difficulty is that if you don't socialise one of these and there's a level of semi-neglect and you don't give them enough time, they can go wrong.
Okay, the final part on this, how do people get the information? That we know, we've seen it all over social media, we've seen it in the papers, we've seen it covered by national TV and local radio and everything else. Yeah. But what about the general information? Where are we getting that from?
Well, the dog wardens are managed by county councils.
Yeah.
They're employees of city councils and county councils. So it will be in the hands of the county council, I believe, for the publicisation and implementation of a lot of this.
Okay, that makes sense as well. Hi guys, okay, that's a request. We'll come back to that in a few minutes' time. Onward. Okay, right, fair enough. We'll park that there at the moment. Now, myself and Caroline, the wife, we decided we'd take a venture off to the zoo on Sunday.
Lovely.
It was a great day for it, and it was absolutely jammers. And I have to say, thoroughly enjoyed it.
Good.
Really, really kind of soaked it up. And there was big crowds, to be fair, at it, too. There was not an elephant to be seen anywhere.
No, they must have had them in.
Not even indoors. There weren't even in the house, the elephant house, or they weren't outside. There was nothing to be seen
anywhere. Their big field was empty, was it?
Yes, the whole thing.
Okay,
yeah.
I can't say I know where they have them then. I'm not sure.
It could be just a case they were putting them through morning and maybe they were just getting them all tested or something.
Yeah.
But there were certainly not an elephant to be seen.
The news is okay coming from the zoo, as I understand it. None of the others are sick again or whatever. They did lose the two youngest ones, which is terrible. And there are vets there keeping an eye on them closely and all the rest of it. And the news is that there are no other elephants sick in Dublin Zoo, as far as I know at the moment.
Right.
I read an interesting article in The Guardian.
Yeah.
Do you remember I said last week there's no vaccine for this type of herpes virus, the elephant herpes?
I was reading
it. There's a trial vaccine being used in Houston Zoo in Texas.
Right.
And they gave it to the first elephant, a 40-year-old elephant. Got the first trial vaccine last week.
But why would they give it to a 40-year-old?
Big and strong and already would have good immunity and would be one to withstand any side effects of the vaccine if there are any.
Okay, what's the lifespan of an elephant, by the way?
Is it 60 or 70?
Yeah, I thought it was about that, yeah. That's what I was, in the back of my mind, it was somewhere along those lines, yeah. Okay, so the good news is that there doesn't seem to be a spread, even though one of them, a 7-year-old, an older one, got the virus, but because she's over 12 or something, they don't expect her to get sick.
Yeah. Now, these herpes viruses are across every species. There's a dog herpes, there's equine herpes, and the fatality in juveniles of a lot of these herpes viruses is up to 70%.
Yeah.
Can be very lethal in younger species. Undoubtedly, I'd say this was first found around 1990, this elephant herpes. I'm sure it probably did mutate, did jump from another species. They reckon actually that the human flu even mutated or migrated across from horses to human beings the time of the World War I.
Right.
So an awful lot of what I call zoonosis, it's about being vigilant about public health, about being vigilant about cross-species contamination, something we cannot be complacent about moving forward in a more globalised world, is the fact that an awful lot of diseases do cross the species barrier, and we have to constantly keep an eye on them.
Is that just a general gig for the vets, specialist vets?
Yes, it is a specialist vets. Now, it'd be above my pay grade, as they say, at practice level. We're just as
you can barely look
as
after
carefully as we can.
Mongrel, never mind that.
Yeah, this is it. We just try and be as careful as we can. But there are public health committees where vets and doctors are working together under an initiative where what they call One Health.
Yeah.
Whereby they look at one disease and they look at its effect on the human population, and then they consider the presence of it in animal species or whatever. For example, avian flu can be a current and future danger for humans, as can many pig viruses and pig infections.
Yeah.
So if you're really vigilant about this. Now, the elephant thing, again, reading that Guardian article, one of the scientists in Houston, Texas, trialling this vaccine, mentioned that there have been reported cases of this elephant endothelic herpes virus all over the world.
Right.
And zoos all over the world are lost. And they're actually taking it really seriously. They believe that this virus could be a threat to the long-term existence.
That's why they're going looking
of elephants. They reckon there are 50,000 wild elephants left.
Right. Okay.
Left. And if they get this vaccine rolled out across the zoo populations, the hope would be that there'd be a crossover. They might be able to vaccinate some elephants that are in that crossover zone between wild and domestic.
Cordo's on, and she wants to know, is there an equivalent of these type of viruses, the herpes virus that the elephants have, with domestic animals?
Yeah, there is. So there's a thing called fading puppy syndrome, which is a herpes virus that kills puppies.
Yeah.
And we have no vaccine for it currently either.
Okay.
So yeah, it's dark.
Okay.
And there's an EHV, there's an equine herpes virus, which can be fatal as well.
Okay. Right, a couple of questions coming in. Would Des recommend anything for ringworm on dog's neck?
Yeah, absolutely. Malaseb.
Okay, go on.
Malaseb, yeah. Ringworm is a really old-fashioned English term.
It's not a worm, though.
From Old English. No, it's not a ringworm. It's a circular lesion on the skin.
What causes it?
A fungus, a type of a fungus, similar to the fungus that causes athlete's foot. Okay? And there are 3 or 4 different types of ringworm. It is prevalent in horses, cats, sheep, cattle, etc. And can cross over to dogs.
And what's the cure? Did you say? What you give them?
There's a wash you apply called Malaseb.
Okay.
You can get in your vets.
So is it just a case with the actual dogs themselves, there's just one ringworm, or is there multiple ringworms?
It'll spread to these circular, itchy, scratchy circular lesions and patches of hair loss, often starting on the head, ears and nose, and then can spread to the paws and other parts of the body.
Does ringworm affect cats as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Cats,
is it the same one?
Yes, it can be the same one. It can cross over from dogs to cats.
Okay.
It can cross over from cats to horses and vice versa.
Okay.
And unfortunately, it's a zoonosis, meaning people can catch it, particularly children.
Okay.
Can contract it, can catch it.
Okay. James is on. He said he's got a 10-year-old collie. He just wants to get his nails clipped. Can he do it himself? Does a nurse do it, or does a vet do it? What should I do? Yeah, that's not an expensive procedure. It's an easy procedure. You can pop into your local veterinary clinic. A veterinary nurse or an animal care assistant would be able to assist you with that. They'd probably take the dog in and just
hold it gently for 5 minutes and do a nail clip. Usually a nail clip would be kind of under €20 in any practice around the country, you know.
Okay, here's another one after coming in. Des, donkey sanctuaries, do you know anything about them?
Very little. I know there's a good one down in Cork.
Yeah.
And
there was one down in Cork, actually.
Yeah, it's still there.
Down in West Cork, yeah.
It's still there. I know a vet that works very closely with them. Joe Collins is his name. He's a very highly regarded, highly respected equine vet who has moved into the sphere of donkey welfare and donkey conservation. One sad thing is that there's a very lucrative trade in donkey skins in North Africa and some Mediterranean countries.
Okay.
And they're trying to outlaw it or bring in incentives to stop farmers or whoever from doing this, because even the donkey population is not as populous, not as numerous as it used to be.
Yeah. Okay, a good way to wrap it up today. Well done. Thanks for coming in to us as always, and good topics of conversation, because they're all kind of part of what's been part of the news as well. And of course, you can check out Des's place as well. You can check out Groom Vets, and it's a Pets Life, and it's easy to do. It's Pets Life, at Pets Life, isn't it?
At petslife.ie.
Yeah, I know. A few people are actually saying I couldn't find it. I typed in it's Pets Life. It's at Pets Life.
At petslife.ie.
At petslife.ie. Okay, good stuff. Do it all again next week.
It's a Pet's Life with Jim Dog, Ireland's first pet resort by Des the Vet. Managed by vets, loved by pets. Daycare, vet care, premium pet food and grooming. Visit at petslife.ie.
KFM's